Great. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Vectra AI podcast. I should say the Hunt Club podcast. We rebranded it not long ago to the Hunt Club podcast. This show on the product briefing show. Um, if you've tuned into previous episodes, I'm Woj. You'll see my face on these podcasts quite a bit. This is the third time we're sitting down with Martin. Martin Baker, senior security engineer. We did a couple shows, Martin, in the past on entities was one of them, and prioritization. We did another one on threat feeds. I think this is the third in a series of talks with you. This one, everybody, is about our API and how to use our API. And Martin, when you tease this episode out to me as a topic that you get a lot of questions on, right? You often use the API in many different ways to get to answers, and we titled this one "How to Go from Zero to Hero." Now that sounds pretty insulting, zero to hero, but give me some context behind what we're going to talk about today.
So yeah, thank you for the introduction, Mark. Just for I make it no secret to anyone. I've been working in security for nearly 20 years in IT security in various forms. I make it no secret that when it came to APIs, up until when I started at Vectra, that was another person's job. That was a someone else thing, because it was the complexity of these API token things, and obviously an IP address is an IP address. However, I just found it very, very confusing, the output of the JSON, and so I never had to actually integrate or bother with them. Since coming to Vectra and my customer engagements, and hopefully some of the customers that I engage with are watching this now, I get asked some very obscure questions that are very valid though. For example, there was one customer who wanted a dump of all of the Vectra users that had accounts within the Vectra platform. They wanted to know when they last logged on, and all this kind of stuff. Now, me sending over a screenshot did answer what they wanted. However, they could have just done that themselves. I think what they wanted to do was get more, identifiable marks in there.
Mhm.
So for me, I've actually gone from never using the API before, as in zero. I'm not saying I'm a hero, but now actually using the API to the extent where probably about 90% of my day-to-day interaction with the Vectra platform with most customers is actually using the API, to actually extract more information, instead of having to trawl through the UI again. There's no criticism of the UI at all, but it just makes it easier for off-the-box analysis when you're looking at maybe, 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 10,000 detections that have triggered over a large estate, and you're trying to get some correlation, the heaviest hitters and things like that.
Okay, great. And I think you're going to share a couple of examples of how to use it, how you used it in the past to answer customer questions. Like, give me another example of a question that you get where the API, using the API, allows you and the customer to get the answer much faster. And
Um,
and who would
yeah.
do it? And who would do it? Like, what is this? I see, occasionally there's probably like compliance use cases. There's probably threat hunting use cases. There's probably just like the one you described. It could be purely an administrative use case, a kind of a hygiene use case, if you will. Are you seeing any use cases kind of more common across the customers you're talking to than others?
So, as an example, then customers had an incident, a data breach, a red team, blue team, whatever color team that they've got coming in to do an assessment. Now, they may wish to know all of the detections that have triggered from these entities, or they want to know every single detection that's triggered between a certain date and a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to be demonstrating using the API 2.5, which I'll get into very, very shortly. This is using the Quadrant UX. There are two versions. We've got Quadrant, and we've also got Respond UX. The reason why I'm using the Quadrant UX is because I'm going to be doing everything locally from the Vectra instance that I have protecting my house. Because I haven't got Respond UX, it's very, very similar. The API, the endpoints are very, very similar. However, the way that you connect, is a little bit different. But do remember, whenever you've actually got your the structure of your API, that will just work, and you can automate these things.
Sure.
Now, for different customers, they do have different use cases. And as I said, there's an example of downloading, all the detections. One use case that comes up often, I'm going to throw myself under here, but I haven't done a demo for this, but this is the API using for the threat intelligence, which goes to our previous
Hmm.
podcasts that we did before. No one wants to sit there on a daily basis downloading the latest rule set and then updating the rule set and then uploading the sticks file, say for example at 8 o'clock in the morning. No one wants to do that, so just automate it using the API. So another use case there for you,
Yep.
which I would implore all customers to use the threat intelligence feed.
Yep. Awesome. Well, let's get into it. Let's see. What are we going to look at here? Let's get into the API.
Oh, so what I'll do is I'll just share my screen. Hopefully I share the correct screen. And can you see the
Yep.
screen?
Yep.
Cool. So as I said a short while ago, I'm going to be using the Quadrant UX. Now, because I'm using the Quadrant UX, I'm going to be running on the API guide for 2.5. Okay, and it does say on here that this is Quadrant. Simply type in, as I did a short while ago, simply type into the search when you're at the main, there we go, when you're at the main Vectra support page. The support portal, this will look for anything that contains, for example, 2.5. Okay, now this has got R 2.5, so I'm just looking for the latest version actually of the deployment guide. So just going on, oh, it was at the very, very bottom there, just there, REST API 2.5. I'm not going to click on this because I've already downloaded it, just here, and we will talk about this one shortly. But the other version that we have is the version 3.3, and this is for the Respond UX. There is a slight difference in this in that because it's connecting to a cloud instance, you have to have the OAuth on here. And again, I don't have locally any platform that I can actually run this against, which is why I'm going to be running on the 2.5. But just be aware, it's very, very similar how you set up things like with the tools that we're going to talk about shortly. Now, I would, and I do joke around with customers, and everyone does have a snigger at this. When I first started at Vectra, I did used to say to people when I used to do training, say to people, if you're ever short of sleep, download, the REST API guide, and and you'll be asleep very, very soon. Now, unfortunately, I've probably read this from cover to cover within the first couple of months of being a Vectra. Again, thrown in the deep end, customers asking me questions. Now, looking at the accessibility of what the endpoints it can actually look at. So we've got on here, and don't worry, I'm not going to run through all of these, Mark, and everyone else watching.
I
But
might
we've
fall
got
asleep per your.
exactly, yeah, yeah. Do you know how to spell API, Mark? I'm not too sure. Well, there you go. It's just there for
You always find a way to insult me on every
well,
podcast we've
got
done,
to be
which is
done.
good.
So we've got the endpoint of accounts, assignments. Now this is one that I'm going to cover a little bit where we've got audits on here. Okay. The other one we're going to look at is groups, and the other one is whereabouts are we? Whereabouts are we? Is rules. Okay, and we got the rules endpoint. I'm going to give people a little sneak peek into the search as well, but also yeah, the threat feeds, what we mentioned earlier as well. Now I'm going to throw into like straight in now into going into a bit of a true story that happened about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and a customer asked me a question, which I was, is that possible? Is that possible? I'm not saying everything's possible, but using the API, you can do some very, very labor-intensive things in literally a few moments.
Mhm.
Now, before we go into anything API, we need to actually look at our, look at our dashboard that we've got here, or our environment. The first thing when you do anything API, you need to have permissions to do what you're doing. Now, in this case, if I just go over to manage and then I look at users on here, we can see that we've got a particular user. And in this case, I'm just going to be doing me, Martin, just over here. So if I just have a look at that one, we've got on here that the super admin permissions. If I cancel this and then go over to roles and then look at the super admin, you can probably guess that the super admin has got quite a few roles on here, so it can pretty much do everything that the platform has. Now, if I was to create, as an example, an API threat feed user, what I'd have to do is I click edit on here, I can see that they've got access to the dashboard, they've got manage, they've got viewing threat feeds, but they've also got the ability to edit threat feeds as well. If I was to put this back over to here, all the API would do is be able to read the threat feeds and do nothing else at all.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do have some errors when you start creating, your API scripts or using some of the tools that I'm going to show now, just have a look at what the error message is, have a look at what your permissions are, and once you resolve those issues, you can then progress forward. So that's the first thing you need. You need an account that has permissions. The second thing you need is, if we go over to my profile, which is still called my profile, even though it's your profile, and then we'll then go to view API token. To view the API token, I've got to enter my local logon password. If I don't know my password, then I don't know how I got into here anyway. But what I'll do is I'll enter the password, and what this will do is it will display the last 4 digits of my API. Did I press enter? No, there we go, continue. It'll display to me the last 4 digits of my API token. I have seen this before where a customer copied this bit just here and they didn't click copy just here. Okay, make sure you click copy just here. Only generate a new token if you need to generate a new token because it's compromised. You may have an API token refresh period where you need to generate new ones. Generating a new token will obviously generate a new one. Any scripts that you have running for automation, they will break, okay? And you can't just, refresh that token because there's quite a few characters in here. I can't remember how many there are. And the chances of you actually getting the same token again, they're probably like 1 in a trillion or something. So yeah, don't generate a new token unless you want to. Now, there will be a number of people that are following this now, and they'll be looking at their screen, and this will be grayed out. If it's grayed out, the reason is because you can only access the REST API when you are not using SAML or LDAP authentication. What a lot of customers do is they create a local account, and sticking with good policies, they'll create an account that is only applicable to the role or the permissions, what they are trying to do. So again, if we look here at the manage and we look at the roles page on here, if we look down here, API host grouping, for example, hopefully I've practiced what I've preached here. This should only have the permissions of viewing groups and editing groups. So if I click on here and we've got edit manage groups, and we've got view manage groups on here as well. So that's exactly what I was expecting to see on here. Whereas if I was to look here, for example, regex API advanced search on here, again, I've actually done some very, very good practice on here. Obviously I would, because I'm a security professional. So yeah, you need an account with the correct roles, and once you've got that account, then you go to my profile and then you create your API, or you copy your API token and put this into your scripts, making sure that you store that API token relevant to where it needs to be done. Okay. Any questions, Mark, so far?
No. What is that, step 1 through 5?
This is probably like step 1 of one, really. Yeah, step 1 of 1. Well, step 2 of 2, because the second step would actually be using your API, which then goes down into a big long course and a road. So what we'll do now is I'm just going to go to the Discover page, and for the next, I would say probably for about the next 20 minutes to half an hour, we're not even going to go into the UI, and we're going to see some significant changes that we've actually made on the platform. Okay, so we're just going to make a note here of this host first, and I'm just going to take some numbers down on here, and let's just go into this one, and I'm just going to look at this one, which is 654. Yeah, that's my children cryptocurrency mining again. No, it's not really. No, it's not. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to the first tool that I'm going to introduce people to. Now, this isn't a lesson on how to use Postman. This is obviously a lesson to how to go from 0 to hero using the API. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you is the ability to actually query where entities are, if they're on the RUX, whether they're prioritized, if they're on the quadrant, what critical or what quadrant they're in. Now, if I select here and then I do a send on this one, you're now going to see that the data was gathered at this date and time, 21 past 2 local time, and you can see that we've got this host here that we saw a short while ago where someone's doing some cryptocurrency mining, and we can see where I've made this nice and red, we got the host in the critical quadrant. Now, you do remember at the very beginning of this, I did say one of the reasons why I started using the API and all other tools was because of this JSON output here. There's a lot of information here. In fact, we've got 331 lines of JSON on here, and a lot of this is kind of like irrelevant for everything that I want to do, but relevant for particular things. Now, so if we just go back over to the visualization here, we've got the host ID of 578. So what we can do now, if we were to click into the platform like we did just now, we saw all of the detections on there. What we can now do is then go to the hosts and we get a specific host with an ID. And if I just type in here 578 and then press enter, this is now going to get us that host that we saw a while ago. What I'm now going to do is click on this visualization, which you can customize yourself. And this is going to show me any notes that are on here. It's going to show me any hosts, well, the details for it, the sensor where this was actually seen. It's going to give me a consolidation of everything for this JSON, actually for this particular host. Now, if you remember, we had detection 654, which was the cryptocurrency mining just now. Now, this is where our automation tools can actually come into play, because if I now go to the detections endpoint and then I get a specific detection, and I now change this one to 654, just over here, and I press enter, this is now the JSON output for that particular cryptocurrency mining detection that we saw a short while ago. Okay, so now we can get more information about this individual detection, and this is how, or this is the details that will likely get sent over to your scene platform, Sentinel, or whatever it may be. This isn't necessarily the metadata that's in here, but this is the data within the actual detection itself. And again, I'm going to refrain from going actually into the UI because we're going to make very, very shortly with some scripts. I think it's 72 triage filters we're going to make. We're also going to create an IP group very shortly. We're going to apply that IP group to those 72 triage filters. And I'll give you a little background story as to why we may do this one very shortly. But the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to triage that particular detection out because we don't need that detection anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter just this detection on that particular one that we saw just now. So we're going to put on here Martin's, oh, I can't spell that. So I'm going to put on here Martin's kids, crypto. That's it. We'll just keep it as that. We're going to put the detection ID in here now, which is 654. What I'm going to do is then press send. We then get a response on here, and it's successfully created. Now, this isn't a triage filter. This is a one-time only triage. So again, this is where your SOAR, this is where your automation platform will come in. Now, this is the ID of what was created, but we're basically looking for a 201, which is telling me that it was a success. Okay. Again, I'm going to refrain from actually going into the platform because not necessarily a surprise for everyone, but it will be interesting to see what we have. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the rules now. So we're going to get all of our triage rules, and I'm just going to do a send on this one, and this is going to come back with 0 because I have no triage filters in my environment. Okay, I haven't created any. I did actually delete the only one I had in here a short while ago, which when we look at audits very shortly, this is going to show us exactly what I did, when I did it, and how I and how. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to here. Yeah, there we go. Now, a little bit of a background to why I've actually created this one. Let's just click clear here. There we go. So a question was asked to me not so long back, and they said, Martin, is there a way of creating a triage filter or creating a triage filter for every single detection type? I'm like, well, why would you want to do that? And they said, well, one of the reasons, because I said, well, just drop the IP addresses. If you're not interested in those detections, then just drop them. Okay, that decreases your license count. But at the same time, if you want to triage it, then obviously you're not interested. Now, the response to this was, well, we are interested in the detections. However, things like guest Wi-Fi networks, and there's certain countries where there's regulatory compliance that if you have the ability to detect it, you have to create detections, not necessarily action them, but if you need to do something retrospectively. So I said, right, what I'll do is I'll try and work on, a script that we've got here. So this is one of the first scripts that we've got, which is the mass create. Now, again, this isn't something what all customers will do, but this is going to show you how effective the API can actually be. Now, again, I'm not going to go into the platform, but to create a triage filter, we need to go manage, we need to go triage filters, we then need to go create triage filter, we then select new, we then select the category, we then select the detection type. Now that took me about 30 seconds or 20 seconds to say that one. Now, when you're actually clicking through and doing all of this, it's probably going to take you about 1 minute and 10 seconds to write a triage filter for each detection type. Now, if you then times that by 72, I think it is, for the different detection categories and detection types, we're going to reduce this time now probably down to about 2.5 minutes to write 72 triage filters. So what we'll do, the first thing we're going to do is just go back over to Postman, and I'm just going to go over to groups. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new IP group on here, and this is a test on here. So we're just going to put in here members, and I'm just going to put on here 10.40.80. Let's just put a random number in, 99 on here. That'll do. We're now going to do a send. That's a bit awkward. Why that has done that? Right, that's really awkward. Let's just put this in brackets. Live demos, Mark. Live demos. There we go. 71. So now this has created an IP group called number 71. So this can be CIDR, CIDR, CEDAR format. This can be an individual IP address. This can be one of many, many things in your environment. But what we're doing is here, we've created a group with IP address or addresses, and we're going to use this very shortly. So for here, we're just going to go and we're going to do mass create. So we're going to go Python. Oh, if I click in here, so we're going to do Python. I can't spell. Python 3 mass. What have we got? All triage filters. There we go. All triage filters.py. This is now going to ask me a very, very important question. What is the management, or what is your Vectra IP address of what you want to use this for? Now, you shouldn't ever show your API token to anyone. So when I enter my IP address here, it says enter the API token, and this will be hidden. Okay, I'm now going to paste this in, and we're going to paste and press enter. This is now going to ask me a couple of questions when it comes up. The first question it will be, if I can remember correctly, it'll be what category do you want? This is taking its time. There we go. Oh no, it's going to ask for the ruling, the description. Now, we do advise all customers when it comes to the description of a triage rule to actually put in here, something meaningful. So if I just put in here Vectra hyphen 2025 and then today's date, 14th, put the analyst that made it and created for podcast. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll now press enter, and it's going to say enter the triage name. So I'm just going to call this one podcast, okay, and then press enter. It's now going to say to me, what categories do you want these triage filters for? Do I want to do it just for command and control and exfiltration or botnet, and lateral movement, or alternatively, do I want to do it for all of them? So I'll just type all on here. Do I want to print the current IP groups that are available to me? What I'm going to do is now I'm just going to type yes on here, and there should be one group in here called IP group, okay, and it should be called group number 71. There we go. There's a funny thing that would happen. So what we're going to do now is we're going to apply this IP group to 72 triage filters, and we're just going to press the enter button, and it's just going to go away and do it for us. Okay, so we're just going to press 71, press enter, and we're now going to get some confirmation that these things are actually starting to happen. Now, if we just go back over to Postman, and then we go to our triage filters, which is up here. Do apologize, rules, get all triage rules, and we press send. There'll probably be 6 in here. If I press send, this will be 8 most likely, and then press send, 10, and then so on, so on. This will keep on increasing. So we've now got all of these detection types are now being created for triage filters for us. So just as a reminder, if anyone from the IP address, which is in this group, triggers a detection of any description of these detection types, okay, it will automatically triage this activity. Again, this could be for guest Wi-Fi networks. It could be because we've got a pen tester that's coming in. Now that took, for me to actually fill that out, I could have done it a bit quicker if I wasn't talking, but that probably took around, a minute, from beginning to end. Now,
Right.
this is, like I said, this is going to take, probably about another minute to happen. Now, what's really important to remember as well is if this is for a pen testing, because you don't want your SOC to be, alerted with all these pen test, detections that have triggered. What I've done is in this script, and again, there are other scripts, there are other coders that are better than me. What this script will do is it will output very shortly a list of all of the triage IDs that have been created. Now, it's worth obviously creating a copy of these so that when you need to delete these, okay, we can do this. Guess what? We can do it by the API. So that means
Hmm.
that we've saved time in creating these triage filters. Okay, this is a worst case scenario, what I've done here. And one of the reasons I've done this as a demonstration as well is to show how much time you can actually save. So I don't know how long that took. It might have been about a minute and a half or something. But we've now got all of our triage rules that we've comma separated. Now, this is very important to remember when we go on to the next stage shortly. So we just go back to Postman now, we'll do a send, and we can see that we've got 72 triage filters on here. Again, the description for this is Vectra, created for podcast, external remote access, etc., etc. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to do one of two things. Okay, we've now realised that the pen test is over, or alternatively, we've created these just for testing purposes. I would advise everyone not to just create, API scripts, for testing in a production environment. Use something like Postman, okay, especially when with Python. Use something like Postman where you can test your API scripts where you're using a GET request. So a GET request is not going to commit any changes. So what I've used here is a post. Okay, well, I used a couple of methods actually because I did do a GET here where it got the IP groups, and I've also posted here as well where HTTP method of post where we've actually created these triage filters on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to here now. I'm just going to grab all of these comma separated rule IDs. Now, I did say about 20 minutes I won't go in the platform for, I wasn't counting. But what we'll do is now we'll just go back into the Vectra platform where we're just going to click manage on here. And we can now see that we've got all of our detection types and categories all visible to us. Now, I don't expect you to count here, Mark, because it will be over 10 seconds. So if I now just click delete on here, okay, and then delete filter, okay, and then we'll do the next one, and then we'll delete this one, okay. This will take, a few moments to do. Now, because I'm in the platform now, if we create a filter manually, go create filter, new, botnet or command and control, we then select the one that we want. So we'll do external remote access. We then have to put a label in this. We then have to put a description, the source condition. This is why I said this will take about a minute and a half to make each of these triage filters. And we've saved well over an hour here of analyst time or security engineering or whoever the department may be. So what we're going to do now is we're going to undo all of our efforts that we've made here. We've worked hard on actually doing these. So I'm just going to clear all this, and I'm just going to just go here and put this at the top so everyone can see. In fact, there we go. Just a bit easier for everyone. So what we've got here is a script where we're able to delete all of the things that we've just done. So we're simply going to type delete filters.py. Again, if you use any other scripts, it will be very, very different to what I've got here. But again, these are available if required. So we're then going to put in our IP address. We're then going to put in our API tokens just here, or API token, should I say, just over here. Do you want a copy of the current triage rules pre and post deletion? The reason why this has actually been put in there is because you may delete the wrong triage filters. So if you have a copy pre and post, so I'll just type yes in here. Okay, a new folder will be created, and I'll just call this one podcast. Okay, just on here. How do we want this? Do we want it in JSON, Excel, or both? What I'll do is I'll just put in here both because I'm greedy. So it's now backing up all of the triage filters, and it's put them into JSON and also XLSX. So if we accidentally deleted the wrong one, at least we have the JSON output so we can re-upload that in the future. Now, this doesn't have to be for the mass deletion of what we're going to be doing very shortly, but what we're going to do is we're going to dump all of those IDs that we had a short while ago just here, or most of the IDs on here. You'll notice that I was one missing on here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to paste this in here, and I'm going to press enter. When I did this manually in the platform, it probably took about like maybe 5 or 6 seconds to do. It's done it's probably done 10 in the 5 or 6 seconds it took me to actually say this one. Now you will notice probably when it gets to about 1000, no, probably about 989, there will come up with an error. If you remember a short while ago, I did manually delete 2 of them in there. When we then go to Postman very shortly, we'll then do a get on the number of triage rules that are in there, and we will be remaining 1 triage rule in the platform, and that will be this 1002. This is just a bit of a time filler. So when this actually completes in a few seconds, we'll be able to see which ones were actually missing on here. So again, this should only take a few more seconds. And then we'll then go on to our next demo, which will be something that's kind of like got me out, or not me out of trouble, but it's assisted me into finding who's done a particular thing at a date and a time as well. So there we go. There's our first error. We've got a 404, okay, because that one was actually deleted. I don't think I committed the other delete on there. So now what we've got is our an output pre and also post. So you can see that this is post deletion. And if we go up to the top where the name was, we can see on here that this is called pre-delete. So if you do have any issues that you may have accidentally deleted the wrong triage rule, you've always got a backup on here. Now, one of the reasons that this particular script was created was because a customer, again, that I work with, they had around 500 or 600 triage filters. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to work out which triage filters hadn't triggered over a certain amount of time. Now, we do advise to review your triage filters. Ideally, this would be done maybe, once every 2-3 months. Worst case scenario, at least every year. But having a review of your triage filters, because if you have a triage filter that hasn't triggered a detection or triaged a detection, it's likely that there may have been some change in your environment. As you bring in new equipment, it's likely that you're going to remove old things such as EDR solutions or cloud backup solutions, as it were. What you can then do is you can get a list of all the triage filters that have not triggered in a certain space of time, the last 6 months, etc. You can then get all of your triage rule IDs, and you can just delete them again using this script, which is using the API. So just going back over to Postman, if we now just do a send on this one, we should have rules, get all triage rules. I don't know. I know what I did there. If you remember, Mark, I did delete 2, and it was the second one that I did on there, which was a little bit annoying there. But trust me, everyone, what would have happened there is we should have had 1, but I accidentally deleted. In fact, that was triage rule 1001, if I remember correctly, because this was an accident. So it's 1002. Okay, so 1002. So this is where what I was a nice little segue actually. This is where I was saying that it's got me out of trouble before, and customers out of trouble, where somebody has done something on the Vectra platform, and we want to know who, we want to know when it was done. So what we can do from here is we can then go over to one of my other pages just here, and we'll go into CD audits, so audit logs. What we're now going to do is we're going to pull down the audit logs from my Vectra Brain for all interactions that I've had, my logons, my logoffs, my backups, my creation of triage filters, creation of users, absolutely everything on here. So what we do is we're now just going to again run Python 3, and this is going to be audit logs.py. Now, some of you may say here, well, we've got our syslog that we can refer to. There's many customers that I engage with who do not retain their audit logs. Okay, they don't send them over via syslog. They don't send them over, to Sentinel, but they just don't have them. Okay, looking at these audit logs on here, this is on the brain of the appliance itself, whether it's virtual, whether it's physical. What we can do is we can query the audits endpoint, and we can download everything that's happened since this brain was installed from a Vectra perspective as a Vectra user. Okay, this will be under one of two conditions: since the Vectra brain was installed, or secondly, from when a backup restore was performed. Okay, audit logs are not retained in a backup and restore. Okay, that's why it's always good to have obviously a syslog server to retain this kind of information. So without further ado, I'm going to download my audit logs. Surprise, surprise, it's now going to ask for my IP address just over here. And I'm going to put this one in. And it's now going to, no, that's not going to do anything there because I did a double enter. Let me go a bit closer to my screen. Hang on, 2 seconds. Do apologize. And going to copy the IP address, or I could have put this in manually, to be honest. Now it's going to ask for my API token. Okay, now what do I want these audit logs to be called? So what I'll do is I'll just call this Bakernet, okay, and press enter. This is now gone off and queried, and it's done it already. So now what I'm going to do is go open Bakernet, okay, and this is now going to open in Excel format. I'm going to just put this over here, and I'm going to put this, let's just have another new window. We'll have another one just over here. We like having tabs and new windows. Okay, a lot of people can't read this on here because obviously it's so small. So hopefully you'll be able to read this now. This has now told us the Vectra user. This has now told us the epoch timestamp, human readable timestamp, what the source IP was. We've now got in here the audit message. Now we know that someone deleted number 1002 as the triage filter. So if I put in here now 1002, right, okay, we can see that the triage filter was created and someone deleted that triage filter. Okay, so I want to know who deleted this one and when they deleted it. So they deleted it at 13:34, approximately 2 minutes after it was created. If we go over, we can see that the Vectra user that deleted this was me. Okay, that's a bit embarrassing. I'm searching for my own work that I didn't know that I did. What we can also do on here is, again, this isn't necessarily using the API here. We've got the information from the API, but actually being able to get this information, I mean, this took a few seconds, Mark, didn't it? Actually having access to these logs may take a lot longer than just being able to query via the API, as we did literally at the click of a finger. So again, what we can do is here, we can find out, the deletion of triage filters. So we'll delete, there we go, triage. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll then, oh, I didn't press apply on that one. Oh no, we did. So we got here earlier on today, actually, what I did was I did actually delete a whitelist triage filter in the platform. Okay, there's a lot of things. I've got a phrase from another Vectra employee: logs don't lie, users do. So looking just down at this list here, if somebody says that they didn't do anything, very quickly you can query the API. You can query the API endpoint for the audits from a certain date to a certain date, so you don't have to trawl through hundreds or thousands of logs as you're going down here. Okay, cool. So what we'll do now is we're just going to go back to our, we're going to go back now to our postman that we've got here. So looking down, let's have a look at Vectra users on here. Now we did see a short while ago that there's a big list of Vectra users that I had in my platform. I can't remember how many there were, but what we can do is here, well, we'll find out in a very short while, we can get all Vectra users and their permissions. So what we do is we just go over to send, and we're going to do a send on here, and we can see that we've actually got 7 Vectra users. As I said earlier, if you're looking at JSON, some people love it, I hate it. But what we'll do is now we'll look at the visualization, and now we can see all of the Vectra user IDs, the usernames, the roles, the last logins, the emails, and what the account type is. Now, if we look down here, we've got 3 that are last logged in. This bottom one, Vectra MDR, this is for MDR customers, so we kind of ignore this one. But these two here, okay, we then want to see why are these, and this is a compliance thing as well. The compliance people may say, I want to know all of the Vectra users that you have. You then pass this information over, and they say, well, we've got 2 users that have never logged into the platform before. Why are they on here? And you're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, yeah, well, we can delete them. We've also got another user here that hasn't logged on the platform. This one here for like 8, 9 months, and this one here 7, 8 months as well. So again, we can probably delete these because they've never actually logged in. However, do be aware, because this says regex API advanced search, the last time that this user may have logged in was to actually get their API token. So just remember, just deleting a user, full stop, could actually cause you problems, because this could actually be an API user and not a Vectra user that's
Sure.
interacting with the platform. That's why it's always good to have a practice like I have here, where I put API host group, API threat feed, etc., etc. Okay. So that was now to show you how to get the Vectra users and account permissions. There's a few other endpoints that we can look at while we're actually here. Again, looking at tags, we may want to put an actual tag maybe onto a host on here. So what we'll do is we'll just get this host ID, just going over to here, and you'll notice now that the OpenVPN host, that's now gone. The one that had the cryptocurrency mining. If we look in here, if we remember, we had Martin's Kids Crypto. Okay, so we did all of this via the API. So we created 72 triage filters. We deleted 70 triage filters using the API. We created an IP group using the API. We've downloaded audit logs. We've what have we done? We've we've triaged out a single detection. What we do on here as well, so we've got 578. Again, this is all done kind of manually with me, but I'm saving a lot of time using the API. This will be done in, instantaneously using your SOAR tools. But what we'll do is we're just going to put on here our host ID of 578. Oh, if I had the right place, there we go. So we're going to put on here 578, and we'll go into the body here, and okay, and created for demo. What we'll do is we'll do a send on this one, and I think we can all guess what's happened. If I now go over here, do a quick refresh on this page, and there we go, created for demo. And just to show that that was that one, if we go over here, and we can see created for demo. This is a tag ID of 578 that we can see on here. Now, if we were to then, we can either clear tags, we can do so much via the API, and you can probably understand now, Mark, why why me not using it, and now I use it so much, for customers to help them pull down queries, do searches, and all sorts of things. Why I actually prefer using it, instead of, there's nothing wrong with the UI, but it's just a lot more
Yeah.
where you can just get a lot more information from it, and hopefully, like I said, using things like threat feed, Vectra match, compliance, getting detections during an incident. If you need to actually download the actual JSON for a particular detection or a host, because insurance companies, law enforcement might require it. They might require JSON. They might be happy with just screenshots, but it's more than likely that they will want something a bit more, robust, that they can actually use for analytical purposes. So yeah.
Awesome. Gotta take a breath. Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, Martin, let's talk for 15, 20 minutes about APIs. And I'm like, wow, this is a good meaty podcast. Getting into some details. Now, when you talk to customers or show customers this, or actually, well, not when you do it for them, but when you show them how to use how to go from zero to hero using the API, you know, do the light bulbs start going off in their head? Like, from an operationalizing this perspective, usually customers are sophisticated enough to be able to do this. Like me, I'm not sophisticated enough to be able to do that. It looked like I was typing while you were talking, and I was actually in the API doing some stuff. And I'm just kidding. I wasn't. I was trying to keep up with it. But tell me, it's like, what's the reaction when you talk to customers about this and show them the power of the API?
So depending on what type of customers I'm dealing with, so we've got obviously financial, health, we've got
Yeah.
engineer, we've got all sorts. Now, different industries are, that it is very difficult to do certain things, maybe in financial. Downloading things like Postman, that may be a big no-no.
Yeah.
Me sharing some of my scripts with them, that might be a complete no-no as well, because they need dependencies. Where's this script come from? It's come from Martin at Vectra. Well, how do we know it's safe?
Yeah.
There's always concerns. My scripts are safe. There's always concerns and worries. Now, once I've done a demo, whether it's on training, whether it's on site, or whether it's like it is now, the penny does kind of like, wow. And I can see people actually thinking of all of the different use cases of where they may need this. Again, it might be proof to the board, the value of Vectra, how many hosts, have done this, how many hosts have done that, how many
Yeah.
detections have triggered. There's so many things. And like for me, again, a plug for our last podcast, is the threat feeds.
Yeah.
You're going to save so much time, instead of paying an analyst to sit there. The moment you induce a human into anything, you're inducing potential errors. Whereas if you've got an API on here where the API, even if you only use the API for threat feeds, API goes off, it does this, it does that. Now, I
Hmm.
will emphasize, if you do use it for threat feeds, you will have to have an intermediary or third-party box. Any Linux host will do, or Windows host. As long as you've got it running on a cron job, goes down, grabs the latest, updates it, puts that sticks feed up, and it will do it at 11 o'clock every single day.
Yeah.
These scripts do not need annual leave. They do not go sick. Your API scripts will continue working, probably way after, the person that developed this script, has potentially left the company or actually set the cron job up.
Yeah.
So yeah, automation, the key for automation, in 90% of things, will be API and understanding what your use case is, how you can actually go forward using it, and again, discovering what your particular, niche actually is. And
Yeah.
it's not about, everything about compliance.
Right.
It's about
It,
finding some other details as well.
yeah, and I think when we were talking, in a couple different sets of customers and with partners on, and we talk about automation, or you talk about AI, or you talk about APIs or whatever. At the end of the day, it's like, hey, where are there inefficiencies in processes day to day? Right? Inefficiencies cause latency. Like another way to ask it is like, where is there latency? Where does it take me more time than it should to do things each and every day, right? Or maybe it's even if it's once a week. Once a week, I have to spend an hour or 3 hours doing this task because we just have to do it. Could that be done in minutes with an API? Right?
Yep.
Could that be done? And it's a simple question like that. It's like find out where the latency is in your day-to-day work and your week-to-week work, tasks, whatnot, and see how you can use the API to go from, to your point, zero to hero, in many cases, and get the answers that you're looking to get, right? Quicker, faster,
Yep.
etc. Awesome.
Well,
What's next on
hopefully,
the docket? Like
I can't remember, Mark. I know
no, I think
we got it
we're
in
gonna talk
2 weeks.
metadata. We're gonna talk
Oh yeah,
metadata.
metadata. Yeah, metadata. Yeah,
Yeah, we're
that
gonna
one will
go
be
deep.
yeah, that one will be good. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not saying this one isn't good, but hopefully, Mark, you learned something today, and
I
hopefully
always learn something, whether it like sinks in,
every day's a school day.
every day.
Yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah,
But this
and
was,
hopefully the audience learned something as well. Yeah, about
yeah,
how, and again, like I said, I'll just emphasize, I steered clear as much as I could from APIs, because they didn't give me the shivers, but it was kind of like, this is someone else's job to do.
yeah.
But now everyone comes to me because it's not their job to do, it's now apparently my job to do, which I enjoy doing anyway. To kind
Well,
of, yeah, fix
it,
problems.
yeah, you can look. It can look for someone not as intelligent as me to put per your comments. It can look intimidating, and I'm like trying to keep up, and I'm like, but at the end of the day, it's like if you put the energy into it to learn it, like you have, you can start to do things in a matter of minutes, if not seconds, right? And it's
Yep.
a little bit of a, and we're all trying to develop and grow and our skills and whatnot. And heck, APIs can learn how to use APIs,
Save
go
time.
from zero to hero.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool.
Sweet.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone,
Thanks, Martin.
and I'll
Thanks,
speak to you all
everybody, for
again soon.
tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks,
Thanks
then.
again.
Bye bye,
All right.
everyone. Bye.
See ya.